Hello, hello. My name is Jay Wilbur, and I'm that one right there. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about co-authoring. I've done it a couple different times, but I'm going to focus on the trilogy. The Hellmouth trilogy includes Hollywood Hellmouth, Hoboken Hellmouth, which is coming out today, and then Honolulu Hellmouth, which is the third in the trilogy and closes it all off. What makes that one unique is the fact that it was four authors that were writing it out. It was myself, Jack Wallen, Armand Rosamalia, and Brent Abel, and we'd operated in the same circles for a while, doing horror conventions, writing. Most of the four of us write full time, and so we're making a living kind of on the low tier of of the horror genre. And we had met at a convention Imaginarium in Louisville, and we were guests there, and we were working, promoting and doing panels and that sort of thing. And our appearances there got us invited to Mid South Con in Memphis. And so we talked about possibly doing a work together, something that we could put together that would be fun, that we could present at that particular convention. And we talked about co-authoring a novel then. And we began it. Jack was the one that originally talked about doing sort of a B horror movie sort of story, something he'd always wanted to do that could be a little over the top, might go in any direction. So we began with that, and then it evolved into something entirely different, and eventually became the idea for the trilogy. So Hollywood Hellmouth was the first one, and from there we decided that we were going to do the three books. Presenting, the first one at Mid South. The second one has just come out. We're about to go to Scares That Care, myself and Armand. And then the third one will come out, and we'll present the entire trilogy completed at Imaginarium again in Louisville. Aside from the implicit, buy my book kind of stuff, I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of co-writing. And having four authors is a bit different than the typical two-person team, but a lot of the stuff still applies. Whatever series you're doing, whatever type of book you're doing, when you co-author with somebody, the idea is the end result being bigger than the sum of the parts. So you're supposedly bringing in the talent of both writers or all writers involved, and making something that could not be produced the same way by one author. A lot of that then is dependent on the relationship of the authors themselves. Obviously, it works good to get along, but then also there's a certain amount of letting go. The idea that okay, I think I see where this is going, but here's where this other person may take it, and in the same way that improv acting is kind of an exchange between people, that type of co-writing then becomes that, and probably works better when a person is willing to let someone else's ideas go. A number of different ways to do it. One way that you can co-write is to switch off, where one person's writing one section, another person's writing another, and sometimes it helps then to have like the second person do the editing. So you'll have the first person write the first draft, second person will come in and edit and make changes and then approve, and then you flip that process. With the four authors, what we did with the Hellmouth series was that we did round robin, and it just so happened that we went in alphabetical order and rotated in that fashion with the first book. And each author wrote a chapter. We read each other's chapters and then did the next one until we'd come to the end of the series. It became something very, very unusual, and in this case, it became sort of a horror humor kind of thing, where we were taking jabs at stuff, and then kind of extended into some satire, where we were kind of putting up things about the horror industry in general, and then film in particular, and then later on in the trilogy, we get into satirizing sort of modern publishing, and kind of are able to make statements on that sort of thing. And I think it being crazy and funny, I think it also has things to say in that regard, and then especially the way the trilogy closed up. ended up being a little different than I had ever expected, and that's kind of the theme of the whole thing. The four authors getting together, it did become something very different from what I expected. And when we decided to go into the second book, we were going to change up the order, and have a different person follow each other. And we thought that might add some spice to it and stuff, because every author kind of had their own little style to it, even though we blended into the one novel. And following a different author would change the way the story worked. But then in the end, we ended up sticking with the same order. There was something about the person you followed and the person you led into that we had developed sort of a rhythm that worked for us. One of the jokes early on in the first book was that Jack Wallen always killed off characters, and so nobody wanted to follow him. I was the guy that always had to follow him, and Jack would, inevitably kill off somebody, and sort of leave me, painted into a corner with blood, where I had to figure out how I was going to get, the people out and the story moving on. And we gave him a hard time about that, but he's a very good storyteller too. And then Armand was always the one that wanted to kind of mess up everybody else's plan. Not some of it was him just being the gremlin in the machine sometimes, but he also liked to kind of turn the story on its ear. So he would take we would be leading up to something that it would seem like each person was kind of picking up and leading. And then Armand would come in and either pull the rug out or make the story take a left turn, and leave us trying to figure out where it was next. And so it got to be fun there. And I think I saw the skill and the talent and the wit of the other writers as we went, and put the humor in there, and made each other laugh out loud. And it wasn't inside joke stuff. It was good, strong satire of a genre that we love in terms of horror. And I think it made a powerful trilogy that way. I'm almost certain that we'll end up doing something else together, the four of us. I don't foresee us kind of leaving this done and moving on, even though this trilogy is done. But I think there is power in co-writing, and I'm seeing some very strong work from a lot of people. Some of the more two-person co-writing teams, and I'll pull up some examples in some later periscopes where I show some that I think are pretty good. But I think some real interesting work is being done co-authored in a lot of genre, and especially horror genre, where they'll get together and combine their ideas into something truly unique. And I think it's powerful as a writer. You're not carrying the entire burden yourself, and you're forcing yourself into different creative areas. So again, our co-writing adventure is the Hellmouth series. Hollywood Hellmouth is the first in the series. Hoboken has just came out, and we've completed writing the third book, which we'll begin editing soon, and then the completed trilogy will be out there. So thank you for your time, and check it out if you're interested. But kind of keep an eye out for co-written work. You might be impressed at some of the unusual directions that those kind of stories can take. Thank you very much.